Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed the podcast. Have a great day.
Good evening. My name is Adam, and I'm an alcoholic. Adam. I think it's close enough to be evening, right? Getting there. My sobriety date is October 28th, 2012. I have a sponsor. I work the steps with a sponsor who has a sponsor and so forth, and I also sponsor other people. I have a home group. I have many service positions within my home group, and I also hold service positions at other home groups because I was told if you're into AA and you're not being of service, you're just visiting. And that really stuck with me. I want to thank the committee for asking me to come speak, Diane, and also Bob and Don for coercing me into coming, setting me up. I'm both honored and terrified at the same time because I've never done anything like this. So, but it's really comfortable being in a room and knowing that everybody in this room I share a common bond with. And, you know, when I look around this room, and at first I got here and I was kind of uncomfortable a little bit because I didn't know all you people. And then the more I got to know you, the more I got to realize it's like, this is exactly just like every other meeting of AA I've ever been to. All the people were exactly the same. We share the same common struggles, the same common solution, and, you know, the same type of people. These are my people. And I'm very happy and comfortable being here and happy to be in Port Angeles on a beautiful Saturday. I also want to thank whoever did, I think it was Diane. Did Diane do the speaker baskets? These were awesome. She got me this really nice leather book cover. It's got my name on it and stuff. There was lots of really nice things in it. I think there was some Tic Tacs in there. I don't know if she knew. I had garlic tater tots on the way down here, and I really needed them. But that was great. And, you know, the one thing that actually I got the most use out of was the silly putty. And I don't know why I was drawn to it, but I'm like, man, it's been so long since I've had silly putty. This is awesome. This is great. And it just gave me something to fidget with, calm my nerves a little bit. Let's see. I think I had my first alcoholic experience when I was 6 years old. The reason why I say that is because I was been thinking on this a little bit recently. And I know when I had my first drink, but when I was 6 years old, I got my allowance for the week. First time I got an allowance, it was like $10. I was super happy, right? And I went down to the gas station and bought $10 worth of candy and ate it all within like an hour and got incredibly sick. And every time I would get any kind of allowance afterwards, I would do the exact same thing over and over and over again. And that just kind of mimics and mirrors the life which was eventually going to be coming for me. There were things along the ways that should have pointed me into the direction of you might have some issues you want to look into. You know, when I was going to elementary school, I'd get my report card, and they don't give you grades like A, B, C, or D. They give you check, plus, and minus, right? Because they don't want to hurt your feelings. And I would always get lots of checks and pluses when it came to like academic and being good at my actual curriculum. But when it came to being a citizen, I got a lot of check minuses and minuses. I guess I was just kind of that kind of rowdy person. You know, I always wanted to be in the group, right? I wanted to feel like I was a part of. And, you know, I've heard a lot of people speak about it in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I very much felt the same way. That when I was younger, I wanted to fit in so bad, but I just felt like a phony, like a fraud. Like for some reason, like the magic juice that you had that made you you, that made me want to be you, I just didn't have and I didn't receive that set of instructions in my life to make me feel comfortable, to make me feel at ease, to make me feel confident in who I am as a person, and what you might think about me really affects me. And the first time that I took a drink, I remember it was the 4th of July. And before that, I always told myself, I'm going to be a good boy. I was born in a good family, right? A good family. I had a loving mother and father. I had older brother, older sister, younger sister, and my mom also ran a daycare out of the house. So at any given time, there were 20 of us just running around the house creating havoc all over the place. But I had a great childhood, right? And I was installed with many different morals and philosophies of my life. And I remember thinking to myself, I won't ever take a sip of alcohol until I'm 21 years old. And I'm never going to do drugs, right? Anybody else ever have that feeling, that thought, right? I'm never going to be one of those people, right? And then I remember I had my first taste of, it was Budweiser, right? It was the 4th of July, and there was some beer lying around, and it was Budweiser. And I remember tasting it and just thinking, that tastes awful. I don't like that at all, right? I don't like that at all, because I just wanted to taste it. I was like, I had no interest in that. I think I was like 10 years old or something like that. But as I was graduating elementary school, it was time for me to start becoming a man. And we're moving on to middle school here, and I don't know if you know this, but there are like periods that you have to go to, and multiple teachers and stuff, and you get lockers. Like, it's a big deal. But that summer, the idea was planted like, hey, you guys want to get a bottle of alcohol and drink? And without even really thinking about it, I said yes, because I wanted so badly to fit in. And I didn't want you to know that I was a fraud. And just like that, all those really strong morals and ethics were thrown out the window. And that first, even though I had that first taste of beer, which Budweiser, come on, like, I can have something that tastes a little bit better than that, right? But that first drunk when I actually got drunk and started to feel that ease of comfort that came from immediately taking that first drink and pulling it down and letting it get right in the center of my gut. And it filled me. It filled me with a warmth, right, and a confidence that I didn't know that I had. All of a sudden, I was always the runt, right? I was the shortest kid in my entire class, right? All of a sudden, I was 2 feet taller, right? I knew exactly what to say. I knew exactly how to walk, how to talk. I felt like the leader of the group. Everybody should be following me. When before I was just very unassuming. I just wanted to know what to do to make you like me. All of a sudden, I knew what it was. As soon as I had that first drink of alcohol, it immediately transported me into the area of I am good enough, that this is okay. And after that first experience, that's what my whole life circled around, is getting back to that point where I felt okay. Every single aspect of my life was surrounded the idea of how can I get loaded and do this, right? How can I go do this task, and how can we get loaded in the meantime? I remember my middle school principal jumping up and down in a fury of rage for whatever shenanigans that we pulled off, and he pulled me in his office and said, I can't wait till the day you leave because I just can't stand you. I just can't stand you. And the problem was that I was a great student. I had a math teacher in 3rd grade who realized that I had a proclivity for math, right? He used to do this thing where he would have change in his pocket and shake his pockets, and you would guess how much change was in his pocket. I never realized how creepy that was until I got a little bit older, and I'm like, that's kind of strange. Like, that's not really normal. But he realized I was good at math, and that I had this proclivity to be really good at math, and I was a good student, But there was also this other side, right? And as long as I was able to maintain the facade of being a good student, right, and doing what was expected of me, right, I can still get away with the other behavior. I can justify the other behavior in my life as being normal. And that was a pattern of behavior that lasted for a pretty long time in my life. As long as I was able to keep this facade up, this house of cards around me, that everything was okay, right, I could justify my behavior. And I'm doing things like I'm going to class loaded every single day. Before I even get on the school bus, I've already killed half a fifth. And the minute I get home, I crash out because I'm starting to come off alcohol. I fall asleep for an hour, I wake up, and I start drinking again. And what do I do when I can't get alcohol because I'm a minor and my access to it is limited? I start doing things like I'll go to the prescription aisle in the supermarket, and I'll steal whatever it is that will get me loaded. I remember I thought I nearly died once because I sniffed too much Elmer's rubber cement. Like, I literally thought I died. I was crawling on the floor, and a couple hours had gone by, and I got transported to the area of I don't know why, right? And why is that? Why is it that, what is it that I'm chasing after? It's what it talks about in that doctor's opinion. Why is it that I drink? I drink primarily for the ease and comfort, right? That the effect that's produced by alcohol, where my alcoholic life seems like the only normal one. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I don't feel normal when I'm sober. To me, the only time I feel normal is when I'm under the influence. And, of course, what comes into that is drugs and alcohol as well. But I've always come back to the alcohol. And I remember my teachers in high school, they would say, what's wrong with you? You've had an off day. And I'm like, man, I'm not, stoned. That's the problem. I'm not drunk. I'm not stoned. And, throughout my entire high school, I was an athlete. I was a wrestler. My junior year is when I really started to get in trouble. I got my first MIP at school. I got really brazen. I was just carrying stuff around with me all the time. I got my first MIP at the beginning of my junior year. I got suspended for a couple weeks, missed the first couple weeks of the wrestling season. That year, I did much better than I thought I did. I actually made it to the state tournament. And then immediately afterwards, I got another MIP. And what happened was my dad and mom were starting to have some marital problems. And they were starting to get some fights. And one day he decided he was going to take a vacation to Cuba. He left, right? And I acted out. So what did I do? I did the same thing I always did. I go up into my parents' bedroom in their walk-in closet. I find that chest, the golden chest of alcohol, right? And I just grab whatever's in there and I bring it to school with me and I get popped again, right? And the first time I got picked up for an MIP, they sent me to these alcohol treatment evaluation. What did I do? I lied my butt off, right? Because I didn't want you to know the truth. I had already known what was going on wasn't normal. I had a faint idea that what I was doing was not too smart, right? That I was starting to lose control. Because what happens when I don't get what I need? I get restless, irritable, and discontent really fast. And I'm lashing out against people for no apparent reason besides the fact that I'm not loaded. And then the second time I got popped, so that I lied, right? And they put me through like an 8-hour class with my parents and told me what could happen to me, and that was it, right? The second time, I did the exact same thing. Ended up lied my butt off again. Ended up having a bad urine analysis, and they sent me to intensive outpatient treatment. At the end of that treatment, something had happened, right? I had become acutely aware that what I was doing, I needed to stop. I needed to stop doing. I couldn't be doing it anymore. And I remember mowing the lawn one day, and this was after I got sent home and suspended for that second MIP, and I just remember crying and thinking, this can't be my life. This can't be what continues to happen. I can't keep doing this. I need to try something else. I need to stop. And I remember I went up into my room, I shut my door, and I started thinking about, I pondered a lot on spiritual matters and stuff like that, but I was like, this can't be what life is, right? Doing this every single day just so I can maintain, just so I can get by because I can't stand who I am. That can't be the extent of my existence and my purpose here. What is my purpose? And I started thinking to myself, not knowing anything about AA or the principles that we talk about here, if there was a God, what would he have me do? He would have me treat his fellows nice, right? He would have me be of service in whatever way possible. I called all my friends and said, I'm done. I'm checking out. I'm done. I can't continue to do this anymore. I'm not going to parties. I'm not drinking. I'm not doing drugs. Even if you put it in front of me, I'm not going to do it. So that's fine. If you still want to be my friend, that's fine. I called every one of my friends, and only a couple of them stuck around because I was the kind of guy who wanted to be around the people that were holding. Because if you weren't, you didn't have anything for me. You didn't have what I needed, right? And I only wanted to be around you if you had what I needed. I used everyone around me. So for that year, I went a good, solid year where I was just going to parties, drinking water. I was a cool guy hanging out, right? And I tried everything that I could do, right, to be of service to other people. Because that's what I feel like God would have me do. And it took for me to be sober 8 months in Alcoholics Anonymous, where I realized I was working the program without even understanding what it was. And if I am an alcoholic, because I look back on it, if I'm an alcoholic, how was I able to have that period of time where I wasn't drinking? Well, it's because I was doing basically the foundation of what the steps are without actually understanding and grasping the gravity of my situation. I didn't have that self-knowledge of my condition. right? But I had a faint idea of what the solution looked like. And I do believe that that was slightly God-inspired, and that I was being pushed that direction. Fast forward a little bit, I was in community college. Things were getting bad at home. My dad and my mom were continuing to fight. They were staying together. My dad comes home. He's got a lump on his neck. Find out it's cancer. He never really drank too heavily, and then he started drinking really heavily close to the end. And he basically became a recluse. He moved into a separate bedroom because he wanted to smoke cigars, keeping cigars in the bedroom, and my mom wasn't having any of that. And he moved into a separate bedroom with a mattress, and he had towers of boxes. He became a hoarder, and he wouldn't even get up to walk just down the hall to even use the bathroom. He had jugs that he urinated into, and there was all this infighting going on in my family, and I felt like I'm just stuck in the middle trying to mediate. And when he passed, I got a phone call from my brother. And I was in the middle of my chemistry class in community college, and just walked up to the professor, wrote him a note that said my dad died, showed it to him, and then left. And I went home and I immediately started tearing down everything off the wall, because I was a skater, right? I was a little punk kid. I had all this stuff on the wall, and everywhere I looked around, it just reminded me of how childish my whole existence was, how futile and childish everything that I had been doing. I had squandered the hours that would have been otherwise worthwhile, right, with my use and my drinking and my selfishness. And I just desperately didn't want to be that guy anymore. And I tore everything away, and just in my mind, I was just thinking, some days you're asked to grow up a little faster than you really want to. And this was one of those days. And my brother, he had a family of his own. He was far away, and I became the man of the house. And my dad left behind a $300,000 mortgage and about $200,000 worth of credit card debt. We didn't really know what to do or how to get out from underneath that. And so, naturally, I finished my degree of getting my associates. And I remember that was the first time I kept a journal. And I kept a journal, and I wrote down, this is why I'm staying sober, and you got to stay sober to help your family. And if you're reading this now and you're not, you've missed the point, man. You've completely missed the point of what your whole life should be about. And would that keep me sober? No, didn't keep me sober for very long, because as soon as the idea of just one is okay came back in the fold, it made it so much easier to just go back. And I don't pick up where I would have left off, right? I don't pick up where I left off. I pick up where I would have left off had I continued to drink, right? And I'm off to the races again. I finally got accepted into university. I went to the University of Washington. The university, I once again found like-minded individuals, right? People who shared my philosophy of life. Right? I wanted to be with the guys who were trying to get stuff done, but also trying to keep it real, trying to party. Right? So we formed a little clique. I went to school for electrical engineering. There's a little competition that they have every year within the engineering department. It's called the Golden Pitcher. Basically, it boils down to 3 guys, 2 girls, 5 pitchers, and the first team to finish wins between all the engineering majors. It was a big deal. Right? I took this very seriously. We placed 3rd my first year, and that was clearly unacceptable to me. I became the team captain. I held tryouts, right, and practice sessions, and I still to this day have this video of us winning the Golden Pitcher competition in like 23 seconds, and I finished a pitcher and a half in about 23 seconds, and that's what I was more proud of that than I was of graduating. Imagine that, because anybody can graduate. Nobody can graduate and win a Golden Pitcher. And once again, it's that same pattern of as long as my behavior is okay, as long as all this stuff out here is okay, I can justify my behavior, right? And I'm doing things like I'm completely terrified of going to class because I'm so wasted, so I skip out on class, or I got to get something on board right now, even though I only have a budget of like $200 for food this month because I'm a poor student. But I'm going to find a way to spend, 90% of that on booze. So I'm skipping out on class to go and get bottom shelf liquor and ration it out because I need that to stay on the up and up. And I graduate college, and I actually interviewed for my job that I have right now. I was actually drunk and kind of stumbled into it. which, once again, just God showing up in my life in ways. So I interviewed for this job, and I was drunk. I went in for my medical evaluation, and I knew that I had some stuff in my system that was probably going to show up in my urine analysis, and they called me back a week later, and they said, we need to talk about your medical evaluation. So I said, here we go. Like, shame, embarrassment, I'm losing out on this opportunity. And and they were like, well, there were no drugs in your system, but do me a favor, can you lay down on this bench? So I laid down on the medical examination bench, and he poked me in the stomach. Oh, what was that? Like, right, that dull pain. He's like, yeah, you feel that? That's your liver. How much have you had to drink recently? How much have you had to drink? And my response was, recently? Like, in the last few days? And he's like, listen, come back in a week and don't drink, and you can have the job. Right, we can give you the job. And I did that. I was able to white-knuckle it for a week. They gave me the job. Immediately before I was even halfway out the parking lot, I was already thinking about where to get my next fix. Right? That's all over. Right? I got hired at this job. I got hired as an intern, became an electrical engineer for the facility, and then through circumstance, I ended up being the guy holding the bag, the last guy. This was originally the job that I wanted. I'm currently a power engineer for an aluminum smelting facility that employs about 650 people. They consume roughly about the equivalent amount of power as the whole city of Tacoma, and their power bills roughly range between $250,000 to $450,000 every single day. And I am 8 months out of school, not sober at all, and the guy who's responsible for all of it, just through circumstance. And the way that it works out there, just to give you some perspective, is if the power goes down to the pot lines, you got about 6 hours before you get it back up. If you don't get it back up within 6 hours, they freeze the pot line, you lose the pot line. It's roughly about 6 months of rebuilding and $100 million of investment. And for that facility, it just wasn't feasible. So essentially 650 people were out of a job, right? And that's the kind of responsibility that I have on my shoulders. And I'm getting wasted every single night. I'm going home. I can't wait till I get home, and before I know it, I'm making those reservations. I'm never going to drink at work. I do, right? I'm, not going to do it. I'm not going to do it before work. I'm not going to do it after work, during work. All those things that I said I would never do, I'm doing it, right? And I'm showing up to work hungover, and people are calling me in the middle of the night saying the power's out. What do we do? And I'm terrified because I'm already half in the bag. And so one night. And I'm doing things like I went to Vancouver during Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, right? Because what else are you going to do, right? And I remember coming out of a blackout in the middle of a riot and thinking, what happened? And I was so upset that my friends had left me and finally called them, and I was just so angry, belligerent, and got on the train, and they were like, dude, we were going to leave you. And I'm like, why would you leave me? It's like, dude, you ran away from us screaming. Okay, maybe I don't remember that, but maybe I did. Then there was one night where I wake out of a blackout, and I faintly have the recollection of being in handcuffs, staring at police officers, thinking, what did I do? And I wake up the next morning, I'm in my bed, and I'm just thinking, did that happen last night? I'm in my bed, I'm not in jail, but I think I got arrested. What happened? So I went to go get my car. I'm vomiting all the way there as my friend's giving me a ride. I'm going to go pick up my car. And we go to this restaurant, and there's this waitress there at this restaurant. And she happens to be an ex-girlfriend of mine, one who got married or engaged 2 weeks after we broke up. So I got a huge resentment against her. She's asking me how things are going. I said, awful. Like, I'm incredibly hungover, and I think I got arrested last night. And she was like, oh, okay. Well, hope you're doing well. By the way, here's my number, And she happened to be the only person I knew that was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And clearly realizing that, once again, this is a problem. I need to do something about this because what I'm doing is clearly not working. I wake up every single day with the desire not to drink and find, like, through some outer body experience, I'm going to get to that drink one way or another. I'm either going to go through you, around you, I'm going to get to that drink, and whatever, and if you're standing in my way, you're going to get hurt. And I don't want to do it. I desperately don't want to do it. I'm sitting on my hands, I'm feeling my nails dig into my backside, but I'm going to do it. and I don't understand why. And I came to the realization before this, and I lived in this for a couple years, this is going to go on for the rest of my life. I'm going to continue to drink and to use this way for the rest of my life, and there's nothing that I can do to stop it. This is going to kill me at an early age, and there's nothing that I can do to stop it. And I became okay with that. I became okay with that because I tried every other way, right? Every other thing that I tried didn't seem to work, So I'm once again trying to get, thinking about this court case like, oh crap, I get a letter in the mail saying that I have to show up to court. Clearly I have to change my behavior. And I'm trying whatever I can to just not drink. I'm putting almost half a can of chewing tobacco in my mouth at the same time to try and simulate the effect that's produced by alcohol. I go to bed, my head is spinning because there's so much nicotine in my system that I have to sleep with my head face down in the pillow in certain positions, right? I'm vomiting. And I remember one night sitting on the couch and thinking to myself, like, this isn't working. This isn't doing what I needed to do. And at that point, something spoke through me louder than any other voice that I've heard. It said, you need to get help now. Not tomorrow, not now. You need to do something about this right now. So I sucked up my pride and I texted the ex-girlfriend and I said, I think I have a problem with alcohol. And I was wondering if you might point me into an AA meeting. And here's the thing. When I started going to an AA meeting, right, I tricked myself, right? This will look good when it comes to time for the court case, right? So, clearly I have a problem, but, this will look good, right, that I'm proactively doing stuff about it. Deep down, I know the truth. The truth is that I can't not drink and that this is a problem. I came here looking for tips on how to not drink. And I saw the 12 steps and I said, yes, I'll try that. Not going to try any of this God stuff. Definitely going to not make amends, right? And I tried, and I went to one meeting a week, just white-knuckling it in between, not staying sober, right? And then my last drink that I had gone to enough AA meetings where I started to get that self-knowledge of my condition. And I realized that if I am an alcoholic, I'm constantly going to do this for the rest of my life, exactly like this, over and over and over again. This process was repeated over and over and over again. And the last time I drank, I finished maybe like 2 beers, and I'm just like, this isn't doing it for me anymore. I can't do this. I can't white knuckle it. And the whole reason I drank is because somebody said, dude, you are losing your stuff. Because I'm flying off the handle at people, and they were like, you need to get a drink. And I'm like, that's a good idea, right? I'm going to do that because I've been good, right? It didn't work. Nothing worked. And I remember I went to a meeting and I was just completely defeated, and I think I finally got to that first step point where I was just like, I'm just so ready to be done with this. I can't continue to do this anymore. I can't continue to do this, to have this struggle. And the topic of the meeting, of course, was the second step, and coming to believe, and a higher power. And at this meeting, you grab a ticket, right? And I didn't know why you grab a ticket. You just grab a ticket, right? And then they call the number on the ticket, and that's who goes up front to talk, right? And right before I got called up, there was one individual. His name is Patrick. I will never forget him. He almost had an aura around him. He oozed spirituality as he just slowly walked up to the stage with his cane. And he was just so soft-spoken as he was talking about his relationship with his higher power. He's an atheist. And his higher power was love, right? And I could tell, and what that one talk did is it opened the door just far enough. If he's an atheist, right, I don't have to believe necessarily like everybody else believes. I just have to have a power greater than myself. And that, right, was somewhere I could start from, right? It just cracked the door open enough just in that moment of opportunity where I was willing to basically take direction. And at that moment, I was just like, I'm willing to do kind of whatever. And I got called up, and I'm still in my work clothes and my boots, and they were like, what do you have to say about a higher power? And I said the only thing that I knew what to say is like, I don't know if I have a higher power or not, or what it is, but I would imagine if I have one, he would have me it would be because he has me keep coming back to these meetings. And I remember I heard that at the end of meetings. The first time you guys circled up, I was like, stuff's about to go down. Right? At the end of a meeting, I was like, why is everybody in a circle holding hands and chanting? Like, this is kind of strange. This is got some kind of cult thing. But the first time I heard that, keep coming back and you don't have to continue on this way, I wanted to believe you. I really wanted to believe you. But it wasn't until I got to that absolute moment of desperation that became an option for me. That was available to me because I'm unique. I'm different. I'm not like the rest of you. I can't see myself in you when I first get here because I'm the most important thing in my entire world. And it was in that moment of vulnerability that two guys came up to me afterwards because they'd heard me speak, and they put their arm around me and started circling meetings on there. And I started going to the first meeting they had me go to was the SOS Men's Group in Bellingham, in Fairhaven, Washington. And I remember I shared at that meeting because one of the guys who was actually introduced me, he was chairing, so he called on me. And then afterwards, one of us came up, and I shared on the death of my father and how that was still heavily weighing on me. And he said, my father died too when I was a pretty young age, almost the same age as me when his father died, and he was almost the same age as me. And he was almost a year sober. And Bellingham's kind of different because it's a college town. Like, I would say probably close to about half of the meetings there are people 30 and under. So it's a little bit of a different demographic. It was really easy for me to identify with that problem that I really didn't want to get sober at the age of 24. I had my whole life in front of me, right? My best drinking years are in front of me. You're meaning to tell me that I have to be reserved to a life of glum and misery and not just not drinking. But what I could see is that the people in Alcoholics Anonymous were genuinely happy. And they seemed to have a glow about them that I didn't have. And what I realized was that as I started working the steps was that glow came from, that spiritual awakening, that spiritual experience. They were experiencing life in a different manner than I was, right? And that bottles were but a symptom of my condition, right? I suffer from alcoholism. And the first time that I read that in the book, it made absolutely 100% sense to me. The first 4 chapters of the book put into words, right, things about my life that I was never able to describe, right? That I was perhaps a spiritually sick person, that I suffer from a spiritual malady. I have this mental obsession and phenomenon of craving that occurs every time I have alcohol in my body. And I suffer from this spiritual malady. Right? They make the logical argument that, if I clearly do not have the power to overcome alcoholism, right, then, my favorite part in the book is it says lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which, that can help restore us to sanity, but how and where were we to find this power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main intent is to help you find a power greater than yourself, which will help solve your problem for you. Which means that the whole purpose of this book, right, is to get me connected with a power that will help restore me to sanity. So, one of our home group members says it the best, like trying to talk about the spiritual aspect of the program is like trying to talk about the wet part of water, right? It is the program, right? We don't short sell it by basically hiding it underneath, right? This is a program of recovery based on spiritual means. And I remember I was like, so how exactly do I turn it over? I was talking to my sponsor. So what am I supposed to do to turn it over, right? And what is God, right? And how am I supposed to get connected with Him? And he says, well, do you believe that I have a God? Yes. Well, you can borrow mine. I borrowed his God for a little bit until I was able to start developing my own relationship with a power greater than myself. And that relationship continues to grow and evolve over time as more gets revealed. Because I suffer from quite a few things, as I found out on my 4-step list. Quite a few defects of character. And the beauty of working through that 4th-step and 5th step is, I got to air all my grievances, right, and see exactly where other people had just rubbed me the wrong way, and then realize what's at the bottom of it. It's selfishness, it's self-centeredness, and what ultimately what it boils down to is fear. And fear just completely robbed me. When it says fear is a thief, it robbed me of so many different things in my life. And when I think about it, I start to get upset, right? I start to get upset of all the things that fear has taken from me and will continue to take from me if I let it. Say, I can't simultaneously live in fear and faith, right? I either am living in fear or I'm living in faith. I can flip-flop between the two pretty quickly, right? But if I have faith that a loving God has my back, right, and he's going to take care of me, that faith is always rewarded, right? Give you a quick example of something that happened recently. My mother, she wouldn't really let me make any financial amends to her. She had taken out a Parent Plus loan for like $8,000 to be able to put me through college, and wouldn't let me pay it back. So I was able to make amends to that by buying her a brand new car when her car broke down. And although she wouldn't directly receive the money from me, I was at least able to do that. It was one of the proudest moments that I ever had as a son, being able to provide financially for my mother. But she went through this really bad spree where she was in the middle of trying to sell her house. Her house was going to foreclose because of that $300,000 mortgage against it. Couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments. Her house was broken into, and all of her most valuable things were taken by one of us, right? I've never seen inconsolable until I seen that moment. I didn't know what to say or do, right, to make her feel better, because it seemed like nothing I did made her feel better, put her at ease or comfort. What do you say to somebody who's inconsolable? Somebody you love. And then not that long afterwards, her mother died. This was all like within the span of like a month or so. So, house looming over it, going to her mother's funeral, my grandmother, and all of her valuable possessions. The thing that she had the most intimate connection with were these valuables that she wanted to pass down to the rest of us. How do you console somebody like that? I had worked a good program. I was a couple years sober, right? I'd worked a good, solid program. How do you console somebody like that? What do you do? And I talked to my sponsor, and I'm like, I don't know what the answer is, but I'll just try my best to work these steps, to love her, to ease and comfort her in any way that I can. And ultimately she came to peace with that her mother passing. We did actually end up selling the house before it went into short sale, before it went into foreclosure. And now the most complicated problem in her life is her dog, her puppy, right? Then I had to start making amends. And I picked my sister first because my sister seemed really easy. My younger sister, right, she loves me, and I made amends to her. And she says something like, and I decided to pick her first because who knows me better than my little sister, right? And I hear things like, I feel like I don't know who you are. Okay. I made amends to an ex-girlfriend that I had for like 3.5 years. I poured my heart and my soul and my paycheck into this whole relationship. I felt like I just gave her so much, right? And finally we broke up just because I had to be free from that. And I hear things like, you weren't there for me when I needed you the most. It's those kind of, it's those kind of amends that I get where it really starts to revolutionize my whole perspective on things. Because I walk around with a veil, right, of my own life, right, which has all my selfishness and self-centeredness in front of it, all my fears, my discomforts, right? And I see everything through this veil. And why do I have a sponsor? Why do I have a sponsor to talk to about my life problems? Because he has that same veil, but not about my life. Right? He has that same veil about his life. And those amends, it really starts to reveal the next layer of the onion. You do the fourth and fifth step, you start to get down to the crux of what's the problem with me, but it's only part of the story, right? I don't fully know how I affected other people until I go through that process and start making amends. When I was, I got a little bit of time left here. When I was, I think, sober for 30 days, the first 30 days I got sober, somebody asked me to sponsor them. And I went to my sponsor and I was like, I don't want to kill this guy. Like, what do I tell them? And he's like, you tell them yes. And I'm like, but I don't know anything about this deal, right? And he says, all you need to do is stay one step ahead of him, right, and pass on. If this guy thinks you have something that he wants, you got 30 days. What does he have? I said, okay. Sponsorship has been a big part of my recovery, and as well as service. For me, right, working the 12th step and being of service to other alcoholics, what I get from that is I get to see the light turn back on. I get to see people come in with their souls completely broken, their spirit completely crushed, right? Where they're just in this hopeless state of despair. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if they're going to make it, right? I don't know, and I don't get to make that decision. But then you work with them, and slowly over time, you start to see the light come on. Right? You start to see the light come into the back of their eyes, and you start to see them start being useful, right, in a different capacity. And I remember one of my sponsees earlier this week asked me, "Is there more? Is there more to this program than just staying sober?" I said, "Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there is. There is more." Like I said, the life I was living before, it wasn't anything. It didn't serve any purpose beyond my own needs. I wasn't helping anybody. I wasn't being of service to anybody. I had no purpose. If I were to go to meet my Maker and said, "What did you do to make my world a better place?" I'd have very little to show, right? If anything, might get like a partial credit on something, right? In Alcoholics Anonymous, I found a purpose, right? I am uniquely qualified to be able to help other alcoholics, right? It brings me great joy in being able to share my story, right, and help other people just walk through this process of the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. They came in as broken as I was, basically just completely distraught at the end of despair, right, where no other, we get here, this is the last house on the block. I don't think anybody comes here willingly and just like, yeah, this seems like a great place, right? I was completely just at that point where I was just so open-minded and willing to do anything because I couldn't go on living the way that I was living because I knew it was killing me. And to be able to extend your hand out to somebody and say, "Come with us, we have a solution," right? You don't have to continue living the way that you're living right now for the rest of your life. And that if you come with us, there's room for you on the broad highway, right? Not the narrow road, the broad highway. With the rest of us. And the one thing that I couldn't deny as I looked around the room, it seemed like people were genuinely happy when I first, and they talked to me about their experience, their drinking, and how they felt the same things that I felt, and how they don't feel that way anymore, and I wanted to believe them. And as I stayed around for long enough, I actually started to believe. I believed that solution could be available to me as well. I had a really good friend in Alcoholics Anonymous. His name was Jason. And the first time I saw Jason at a meeting, I was like, stay away from that guy. Like he seemed like at any moment he could snap, right? And I talked to him about it later, and he was like, actually, yeah, I hated you when I first came in as well. Like when you first came in, you just seemed so smug and like, yeah, I didn't like you at all. We ended up becoming really good friends, and he sponsored a bunch of guys, and one day he asked me, hey, will you sponsor me? And at that time he had what I thought was the world's greatest sponsor, and I'm like, dude, are you nuts? Like, no, like why would you want to move away from that? And anyways, I'm like, I will if that's what you want, but I don't think you should. I think your sponsor has a lot more to offer than I do. But I called him that night to arrange my first meeting with him, and after about 2.5 years, he relapsed. And I met up with him and worked with him for a little while. He bumped around in different sponsors. And I would see him at meetings, talk to him about what's going on, and I said, hey, man, like, how you doing? He would smile and say, hey, man, it's going great. Like, my life is awesome. I got this new job and all this stuff. And probably about, a few weeks later, they found him dead in his apartment with a needle in his arm. And if I was honest with myself about where I was at the time, he was probably my best friend. My best friend in recovery. We watched, Seahawks football every single Sunday. We went to meetings with each other. We talked to each other. He'd send me texts in the morning to see how I was doing. And I think about that a lot. I think about that possibility that people who are still here has that capability in them. I have that capability in me. And then there are people outside of this room right now who are in that place, who have that potential as well. So why would I not want to be a part of this thing that helps make sure that when they come in like I come in, that there's somebody that can put their arm around them, circle some meetings on a calendar, and tell them, here's my phone number, please give me a call. You don't have to keep living the way that you're living anymore. You know, in Dr. Bob's Nightmare, it lists the 4 reasons why we want to why he sponsors other people, right? And why he does this 12-step. It's a duty, right? It's my sense of purpose. It's a pleasure. I get to see the lights come on in people's eyes as they start to get this and apply these steps in their lives, and they don't have to continue living in that despair, in that way that they're that intolerable existence anymore. You know, and that in doing so, that I take out a little bit of insurance, right, against the slip, right? But it is the number one thing that I do to help remind me why I'm here, why I need to continue to stay here. I don't want anybody to take my chair. And I'm willing to do whatever is possible to make sure that that chair stays fresh for me and that I keep another one fresh for somebody else. Because the most important thing that Alcoholics Anonymous told me is that I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what purpose I'm meant to serve besides just being of service to God, and more will be revealed along the way. And through this program, I've seen truly miraculous things happen. I've seen people lifted from those depths of despair, just like I was, and start to lead fully functional lives when I was just like, dude, I don't think this guy's going to make it. And I've seen the other side of it as well. I believe that's my time. I'd love to keep talking, but thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.